Jared Haas with Frontstretch.com, and some big news dropped on October 2nd. 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports enter an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. How did we get here, and what does this mean for the teams? 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports released a joint statement on social media saying, quote, "We share a passion for racing, the thrill of competition, and winning. Off the track, we share a belief that change is necessary for the sport we love. Together, we brought this antitrust case so that racing can thrive and become a more competitive and fair sport in ways that will benefit teams, drivers, sponsor, and most importantly, fans." Now, NASCAR is relatively new to this teams being together as more of a collective, because back in the day NASCAR operated as independent drivers competing in a league. NASCAR didn't really have decision making. Drivers would come or go as we leave, but they still claimed to their power. In 1950, Lee Petty was penalized for competing into a stock car race outside of a NASCAR sanctioned race. That penalty cost him the 1950 championship. Other drivers were penalized as well. Even in 1961, Teamsters tried to unionize, and Bill France said, quote, "No known Teamsters can compete in a NASCAR race. I'll use a pistol to enforce it." NASCAR rode the wave of success from the 60s and 70s to the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. And by the mid 2010s, NASCAR's popularity was waning a bit and was starting to make decisions to firmly grasp themselves as the sole provider of stock car racing. In 2018, NASCAR acquired the only other really stock car racing series, known as ARCA, to be one of its feeder series. Also, in 2019, they bought for $2 billion ISC, which owned quite a few of the tracks, including Daytona. So NASCAR held a lot more tracks that were on the schedule now. And it was the introduction of this new next gen car. The teams do not own the parts. NASCAR owns the parts, and they can't use these parts that they bought from NASCAR for other racing series. You only get 7 cars per car number that these teams are allowed. And guess what? You don't even get to decide if you repair the chassis. NASCAR decides that. So NASCAR has controlled more and more on what the product is. And we've gotten to the breaking point as these negotiations were drug out. And it was on one fateful September 9th that everything broke loose. NASCAR and Race Team Alliance did hold meetings to try to come together to an agreement, and for quite a while after the initial 2016 charter was extended to the end of 2024. And it wasn't really much progress being made on these charter agreements. And in March in 2024, NASCAR went after individual teams instead of going through the joint negotiations. And it all boiled over on September 6, 2024, before the NASCAR playoffs started at Atlanta Motor Speedway. They sent over a final take it or leave it offer with 1 hour to review, over 100 pages of a charter agreement. And NASCAR included a lot of things in there that were not really beneficial to the teams, including using the team's intellectual property for NASCAR's benefit, not splitting with the teams, just for NASCAR's benefit. It also restricted drivers from competing in, quote, stock car racing, and expanded the language to say automobile or truck racing. And is this outraged many teams to only get an hour to review this 100-page document. NASCAR did grant an extension to read over this stuff, but it was only to midnight. And if a majority of the teams didn't sign it, they would eliminate the charter agreement completely for 2025. Now, why did these teams sign, and why didn't 2311 and Front Row sign? Well, it is really tough to run a business. There have been multiple drivers, including Denny Hamlin and Jeff Gordon, who owned Hendrick Motorsports, to say it doesn't really turn a profit to own a race team. And like I said, the lawsuit claimed that it roughly takes about $18 million to run a charter team without paying a driver. And looking at the purses that NASCAR provides, it's roughly about 10 to 12 million dollars that drivers will get um, throughout the season. You're looking at a couple $1,000,000 that you need to at least come up with sponsorship. And Front Row Motorsports claimed that they never turned a profit. But the big thing is, it's really hard to set up a league to compete with NASCAR. If you want to compete, you have to at least have 18 to 20 races minimum to compete with these series. And a lot of the big tracks that have the nice facilities have this agreement with NASCAR. And in this charter agreement, tracks can't host other stock car racing. So they, instead of trying to get fans to watch racing, you would have something like a gun show at Texas Motor Speedway. Not really generating interest in motorsports, are we? Getting the greater cause in there. You see the bigger concern with people trying to get interested in racing, and you have a track, but they mostly sit empty. That is a problem with that part of the perspective of the tracks. But like I said, the teams would have to come up with a lot of, tracks and capital and all this stuff that NASCAR has, and they can't really they don't have it. And as Rick Hendrick said, they're tired. That takes a lot of work. So there's a reason why a couple of these teams had the goal to do it, and some of these teams were just like, okay, fine, I'm done playing these games. But what does that mean with the other two teams? Now, 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports may not seem like similar teams, as one is aligned with Michael Jordan, and the other one is a 20-year veteran owner who has some franchises of some restaurants and has seen it all in racing. Well, both of those teams were looking to expand into the next season with another charter. Both of those charters coming from this closing down Stuart Haas Racing. Again, there's a lot of question marks with that team. 2311 Racing still really didn't know the third driver. Obviously, you have Bubba Wallace's back to multi-year extension. Tyler Reddick assumed to be back as he was the regular season champion. And then Front Row Motorsports, you have obviously Todd Gilliland is going to be back. You have Noah Gragson being signed forward. And then you had a third car rumored. Zane Smith has been the main rumor. Got to patch the relationship with Ford. Also been another Smith, Chandler Smith, a name thrown into the Front Row Motorsports third entry. But again, there's a lot contingent to this charter deal. But the teams want an injunction to compete next year. And they will compete next year if they do not have a charter. And like I said, the thing is, they'll still be out there. There's just going to be a long legal battle behind the scenes. And I think Denny Hamlin is going to cause, like I said, a ruckus, trying to make sure this is not going to go away. I mean, they had this court case going on, and NASCAR does not have a comment at the situation about this current litigation. And the attorney for 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports, Jeffrey Keisler, said, "This has never been a case I have found that is as egregiously anti-competitive as this one." So we'll see, probably in the coming year or so, what is the fate of this court case. But definitely an altering case in NASCAR's history. NASCAR's history is going to change from this point forward. Racing can be an entertainment business, but I do want to talk about Operation Airdrop, that we are, like I said, have a link in the description to help donate the people that were affected by Hurricane Helene in eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina. Please visit that link to donate. And that's it from this video. As always, like and subscribe. That helps get our content out. And until next time, as always, make sure to have a great race weekend.
Steven Stump of Frontstretch.com here. Come back for more great racing videos, and if you like us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.